What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of the Meadows and Makers podcast. I am Greg Dowd, your host, and I am known as Making Stuff in the Hive community. If you haven't heard of Hive, it is a place where you can blog and you can earn cryptocurrency, which is an important thing for nowadays, now that we've got the collapse of the fiat currency system, in my opinion. And so, on that note, welcome to this podcast. This is where I try to share with you guys some of the things that I'm doing in my own life to work on self reliance and personal responsibility to increase my abundance and freedom in this world. So, then I try to bring on guests periodically that are working and attempting to do the same kind of stuff. People that are like inventors, makers, homesteaders, freedom loving people of all types. So that's generally what this show is about, and I try to kind of bring in some of the current events that are happening right now, and talk about some solutions that you could implement in your own life, and some lessons learned from mine. So welcome to the show. What's up, Crimson Clad? I see you hanging out in there. So yeah, tonight I titled the episode "Stop Looking for a Savior, Save Yourself," and that's part of the message I try to bring to everybody is that nobody is gonna come to save you because that is not the reality. The reality is we're in this to figure it out on. You got to figure it out on your own, and by the time you're looking for a savior, that you're gonna disappoint yourself, I believe. So, what's up, Gabriel? Good to see you. Hanging out in the chat. Hope you guys had a great week, great past week. So, I know I had a pretty good weekend. That was my mom's birthday, so we had some family over to celebrate her birthday, and ate too much banana cake, and generally felt like a fatty fatkins. So, but it was a really good time getting to hang out with some of the family. I think that at least from going to see my grandpa for his 100th birthday, maybe, some things have smoothed out with a couple of my brothers in my family. At least we're able to hang out and enjoy each other's company for doing family kind of type events like that. So that's been pretty positive. That's been some cool stuff that's been happening in my life recently. And so tonight, that's generally what I've got planned for you guys. Is there's a really cool, there's a cool video that I want to share with you about a local guy doing some work with Aircrete and Styro Aircrete. So we're gonna go into that. He's posted a video on his channel, which is called let's see. Abundance Building Concepts, and I've shared his stuff in the past, and it looks like he's like fully built out his Styro Aircrete shed, and I think this is a really cool idea because of all the insulating properties and being able to save on materials, because you can fill up most of that concrete. Basically, you can stretch your concrete further, and you can make some interesting structures like domes. And what his example is an arched shed that he built. And he's also built a whole shop with this Styro Aircrete material. But I've got one video for you guys showing about that. And there's a conference coming up that's being put on by John Bush. So I wanted to make sure that I get that to you guys. It's called the Exit and Build Land Summit. And on his website, if you register on his website, you'll get access to some of the free replays from the conference. So this is happening in Texas. So if you can't make it to Texas, in May 13th through the 15th is when they're doing the live conference. That you can get access to their the conference virtually, and then they also have a way that you can attend virtually. And I believe that you get some cool stuff, like I think they're gonna do some kind of networking event through that, from what I've heard. So we're gonna cover that for a little bit on the show tonight. And then I kind of just want to share with you guys some stuff about the aquaponics build and how that's going, because I have made a little bit more progress on that front. We still don't have fish in the system yet, but everything I had to, when I came back from my being out of town, going to visit my grandpa, that there was an issue with the aquaponics system, and so I had to take care of that. But I got some biochar introduced. If you guys have been paying, or if you guys have been following along, that I've been producing some biochar and had a successful run in a retort that I built to create biochar. And so recently I was able to take some of that up to the makerspace and figure out a way to suspend the biochar in one of the filter tanks. Actually, both the filter tanks that are set up on the system, and just as an experiment, see what it's going to do to the water quality. It's supposed to help with water quality. So I'm killing two birds with one stone doing this, because you can't just directly use biochar in your gardens. That you have to get it inoculated by like soaking in water and introducing it to some of the beneficial microorganisms that take hold inside the biochar. So experimenting with that. So I want to show you guys some of that in the beginning here, which I just posted to Twitter. So I'm gonna open up my Twitter here, and we'll take a look at that getting started off. And I'll show you guys a little bit on what I'm doing in that front to figure out this whole biochar thing. So here is, let's start off with this. This is the beginning update of what I want to show you guys for the aquaponics system. So this is its current state. When I got back from the vacation, that I didn't realize the last time I was at the makerspace, this was my reserve tank of water in this barrel. Let me see if I can enhance that photo there for you. So enhance. So here we go. This is the reserve water tank. This is a 55-gallon barrel that's inverted, and there's a like a plumbing fitting at the top, so you could put it. It's a hose bib fitting that's at the top of the 55-gallon barrel, and it's just got a wooden stand that my buddy Dimitri, he built this, and then when he left to move to Florida, he left Alabama to move to Florida. He sold me this thing that was already set up for his chickens. Basically, it was what he was catching rainwater in and using that rainwater to distribute out to his chickens. So I've reclaimed this for the use in this aquaponics system. So anyway, I had that reverse osmosis filter putting water into this barrel, and I've been using it as a reserve water for if there's any leaks or anything in the aquaponics system. And there's a ball valve at the bottom of it, so that I can use that to flow the water into the system, and be able to have enough water in case something happens that I need to refill the system up with water. And so I left that open. I left that ball valve open, and I lost all the water that I had in that tank. So I had to bring the reverse osmosis filter back up to the maker space and hook it up to the sink up there, so that I can start making some water again. And then I went out the other day and I bought a gutter so that I could set up rainwater collection off of this roof over here. And then I also made a couple of poles that I put into 5-gallon buckets with concrete so that I could set up this shade cloth. And so one of the rules of the makerspace is that we can't do any modifications to the external part of the building because the building is being rented for the makerspace. So I figured out a way of setting up these concrete poles and tying the shade cloth to it. But I'm kind of disappointed on how that worked out for me with this rectangular shade cloth. I mean, it's serving its purpose right here, but you can't see the rest of the photo because the pole is just sitting on the ground pretty much, and it's kind of propped up by a folding table right now. That's the only thing that's kind of keeping it in the right position that I have here right now. So I really don't like that, and I have a triangular shade cloth that I believe will work a lot better, and I'll be able to use these poles and set it up so that it can actually just be over the aquarium tank where I want it, and maybe partially shading the grow bed as well. So we can keep the midday sun from getting so intense on it and everything like that is the purpose that I'm trying to achieve here. So some of the things that I talked about the previous week on doing some improvements to the system, I've been working on that, and so this is an update shot from that. So you can get a little bit better idea on what I'm trying to achieve here. So just trying to keep the temperature more stable for all the fish that are going to live in there, and talking to one of the members of the makerspace. They're going to go whenever they're out fishing, they're going to try to catch some bluegill so that we can put some local bluegill into the aquarium. And I'm only going to start with a few fish in the beginning, and we're going to introduce more fish as I'm monitoring all the pH levels and the temperature to make sure that we're not going to start doing huge swings in the pH, and that everybody's going to be happy in the system. All the fish are going to be happy in the system. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm aiming for the end of the week to get fish and some plants planted in here, so that this can be, it's basically the first working prototype of my buddy's design, my buddy Robbie Olson's design from his website, DIYAquaponic.com. And this is called the Urbanite system. And so had some good conversations with the guy, with Chris Walls that runs the Makerspace. He's the founder of the Monkey's Wrench Makerspace in Huntsville. And we were talking about how we could basically build these into some kits. And so it's my buddy Robbie's design, so I want to get him involved with that, and maybe we can come up with some designs that could be basically we could set up workshops where people could come out and build one of these systems, and then kind of go over like the concepts and stuff like that, and then from helping build the system, then they'd be able to have the basically have the option if they wanted to buy a kit themselves to self-assemble. And so we were talking about that as an idea. So that might be a possibility with this community that we've got going on at the Makerspace, which I think is really cool. And people that are doers and want to actively do some projects, and then part of that's going to go as if we do a workshop fee, that part of that will go back to as the donation to keep the makerspace and help pay all the bills at the makerspace and everything. So so really neat thing. And then I was also thinking of an idea of maybe setting up a live stream of the fish in the aquaponics system, and then maybe having some kind of functionality where you might be able to feed the fish on the live stream. But thinking about that with a buddy of mine today, we were talking it over, and then there is an issue of overfeeding the fish. So maybe it just goes on like it'll have its like daily just kind of fish feed timer, and then maybe we can adjust the amounts or whatever, so that they'll regularly get fed. And maybe it's not related to the feeding or whatever if they've already been fed for the day, but it triggers some kind of event, like something happens in the fish tank. Maybe there's some kind of special things that happen. But anyway, it was just an idea, and maybe a project that we can work on at the makerspace, so that people can see what's going on there and just kind of be like, hey, this is something cool we're doing at the makerspace. So something I'm thinking about working on. So let's see. Let me show you guys a little bit about the biochar system, or the biochar that I've introduced into the aquaponics system here. So let me enhance this. Enhance. All right. So here is some of the biochar that I made, and this is a little video just showing you what I'm doing to get a finer particle size out of this material, because it's basically just a bunch of branches that were dried out that were in my dad's backyard that we just like broke up so that they would fit in that metal trash can inside of the larger 55-gallon metal barrel to do this whole biochar retort. And so they're fairly large. They're like a bunch of those pieces of branch that are not at the optimal particle size. I believe the optimal size is around like 10 millimeters or something like that. But basically all I did was take all of that stuff there and put it into this sock material, and then kind of jumped on it with with my feet to kind of crush it down, and that's how I made it into a finer particle size. So so this is just a short video showing you that. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this for you real quick. Thing here before I go through it, and I'm going to crush it down to a smaller size, because you can see these are some larger chunks, and I'd like to the suggested thing that I've seen and heard about is around a 10 millimeter particle size, which just gives you a lot more surface area for this stuff to get inoculated and everything. So so it's going to be pulverized a little bit to get a smaller particle size. So but this is what I'm starting with, and I'm just filling up these socks right here that you can see. It's just like a really fine sock. Okay, so that's the idea there, and then here's another video showing you, what I'm doing with that. I try to put in a sock, and I'm just kind of stomping on it so that I can get it down to a finer particle size. And then I'm going to take it and introduce it into our aquaponics system here, and just let it hang inside one of the filter buckets, the last filter bucket, and I'm going to tie it to this pipe right here. And the idea is to help inoculate the biochar and help clarify the water. So we're going to try it out and see how well it works, and let you guys know what the results are. So checking it out. So I don't really know how to film. It's like totally upside down on that one. I guess that was the way I was orienting the camera. But I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea on what I'm using this for and how I'm using the biochar in the system. And like I said, I really don't know what the results are going to be from this, but it's science, so we're going to observe and report on any of the differences I'm seeing, like in the water quality. I've some of the water quality readings before I introduce this biochar, and then just kind of keep track of that and see how things change, and then maybe if there's a noticeable change in the visible water quality. Uh, I was thinking about putting this stuff in the main aquarium tank, and I gave that a try, and it's just got pieces of the carbon coming out all into the water. So I was like, that might not be the best for the fish swimming around and maybe getting that into their gills and stuff like that. So let's just try it in these filter tanks and see how it goes and go from there. So that's kind of an update on the projects that I've been working on so far. Just kind of been tinkering around at the makerspace and working on all of that. And since I've been back home and been watching the chickens in their chicken tractor system, and they've been doing really well. Been getting out there to feed them in the mornings when I get up on time to get to work. Uh, but yeah, I've been going out there, and we've got the compost ring going, and we haven't been able to keep up on that as much because of all the travel that I've done and everything. But the first compost ring that we created, we combined into two piles. So the first one we turned and aerated, and then there was a second pile that we started, which only got like halfway up the compost ring, and then we ran out of leaves to add to the system. So we got some more compost into that, but basically we decided to combine the two compost piles that were started, and then make one larger pile. So we've got that going on right now, and looking to see what kind of results we get after. I guess this week we're gonna clean out their chicken tractor with the bedding that's in there, which is just some straw, and then we're going to turn that compost pile again and move the whole chicken tractor downhill again. And so I'm hoping to see that there was some good progress on how the old pile is breaking down and turning into some good composted soil for me. So this is a picture of the chicken flock and kind of currently how they're looking out there. We've got them netted and double netted on both the electric net, and then they have an aerial net for aerial predators trying to come in there and snatch a chicken up. And so what I've been observing recently is the chickens are getting closer to their full maturity. We'll get there in probably July, and the hens will start laying their eggs in July, which will be about 6 months after they were hatched. From little chicks, I hatched 7 of these little guys myself in an incubator for the first time. And so that was a pretty cool process to go through, seeing them become, little chicks popping out of the egg to running around now almost fully mature chickens, and now seeing which ones are probably roosters. I've got one, at least one that's starting to crow, because I heard him out there in the chicken tractor the other day before the automated coop door opened, and been really liking the automated coop door from the Run Chicken guys. That it's time to open at a certain time in the morning, and then when the sun goes down in the evening, it gives it 20 minutes after the sun goes down for all the chickens to go get up into their shelter in the chicken tractor there that I built for them. And so thankfully we've had no issues with predators so far, and they're well protected, but I kind of got this thing locked down a little bit like Fort Knox right now. So hopefully we don't have any issues with predators in this kind of a system. I'm hoping that when they get fully grown, what I'm gonna do is actually extend out the fence, the electric netting, a lot more, because I think I have like I think it's 100-foot electric net, and I expand it out the entire way so that they'll have like a lot of space that they can go free range to eat up the bugs, and just express the chickenness of their chickenness. So so got that going on at the homestead, and the first time that I've done this free range system where they're outside of their little tractor area, and that they can go and free range around their little section. And that's all possible with that Premier One electric fence poultry net, and it's on a solar battery system, so I can take it around anywhere in the yard. I don't need to, be close to, an outlet so that I can plug into an electric fence charger. It's portable. I can take it anywhere around the yard, so this whole thing is mobile. We can continue to move it around the entire yard, and let them graze on, or let them be on fresh grass areas, and so that they're never creating an area where it's going to get real stinky, and their poop accumulates and everything. So it should be really healthy for the chickens, and for us as well. And hopefully through this process, we're building compost, and we're building new soil, and they're working the soil. They're keeping the bugs down. They're doing all their good stuff that chickens like to do. They get to dig through the earth and get to scratch around, and have a grand old time. But this ring, I don't know if you guys can see it in this picture, but there's a ring there, and that's where we've been adding all the compost. And I just added some biochar into that system, so like as the chickens dig through that they'll be eating up some of that biochar and inoculating it for me, so that once we're done with this compost, it should be like a really super high quality compost, because it's going to have that ability to absorb all the water that you get with the biochar, and then it's going to have the nitrogen in there, and then all of the carbon material in that nitrogen, and create some really nice finished compost for us to add around our fruit trees, and add into the garden that we're going to plant. And we're really behind on planting a garden right now, because we're into May right now. Today is Tuesday, May 9th of 2023, and we still don't have a garden put in yet. And I don't think I didn't even think we planted till June last year. Maybe it was in May, but we got a pretty decent yield of squash and some corn and some peppers and tomatoes and things like that. But anyway, I got to get on that. And this season I've got a brand new weed suppression cloth. That's a really high quality weed suppression cloth that they sell for gardeners that are wanting to keep out the weeds. Um, so it's a really dense weed suppression cloth, and I want to do like I did last year, where I put the holes in a pattern so we can plant in those holes and then keep the rest of the weeds out, because you know that's one big thing about gardening is that you have to go out and you got to pick weeds. So just doing the full time job, and then taking care of the chickens. Sometimes I'm doing farm sitting now, so I'm off the property. I can't be here. I'm not here all the time, so so it's a little bit tough keeping up with all that. If I don't have some kind of system or something in place to help me out with that a little bit, so that's why we're gonna use the weed suppression cloth for all that, to help keep out the weeds, so that we can have all of the delicious garden foods that we get from planting a garden. And I really liked the butternut squash that we planted last season, because we were eating on that like all the way through uh, just a couple months ago, I guess. Like, what now is May, so April. I guess, yeah, I guess we finished eating that in March, and then it's able to store all winter long. So uh, that's pretty cool thing is butternut squash, that you're able to preserve it without refrigeration for a long time. So that's a good one to do. And then a buddy of mine just planted a big old patch of sweet potatoes, and that's another great calorie crop that you can store in kind of a cool, dry area during the winter time, and it's a good one that you can store without refrigeration. So if you have like a basement or a root cellar or something like that, where your temperature is not going to get too hot, that they can store pretty well and stuff like that. So that is kind of everything that I've been up to lately on the self-reliance aspect of things. And I wanted to share this little video with you guys, because I am super interested in this aircrete stuff, and what this guy is doing with the styro aircrete. Him and there's a few folks that I've run across on YouTube that are playing around with this on how to do like some low cost structures, and then this guy is one of the guys that's really been playing around with it a lot, and demonstrating some of the stuff you can build with it, and what kind of price you can do it for. So let me share this with you guys in the chat room here. This is the Abundance Building Concepts YouTube channel here. I believe he was previously had a channel in his own name, and maybe he's changed the name of his channel, but we're gonna watch this and take a peek at what he's got going on with this the shed that he built out of the styro aircrete material, which is styrofoam, and then the process for creating aircrete, which is you get a foaming agent, and you get it to a really thick lather foam, and you mix that with Portland cement and water, and then it creates like a light, airy concrete mix that you can do all kinds of stuff with. And then he's going another step and adding in this styrofoam. So let's check out his video here and see what he's built.
Well, I have finally finished the garden shed, and it has turned out as well, if not better, than I'd hoped. It is fun building with recycled material, and styro aircrete has got a lot of positives. I tried a couple of new things on this build, and so stay tuned and I'll show you how I built this thing and share the good, bad, and the ugly of working with styro aircrete. So stay tuned. With shredded styrofoam, 85% recycled material went into this the garden shed, and this is a phenomenal way to build. The more I am building with it, the more I'm seeing opportunities of what you can build. The first project was my workshop, did the walls, but did not do the roof. In this one, I did an arched A-frame, did the entire building out of this. My next project is going to be a little well house. The whole thing will be styro aircrete. You can build pool houses, garden sheds, workshops, mother-in-law suites in the backyard, B&B on the lake, anything that you want to. And what is really interesting about this is that you can use scrap lumber that everybody else is throwing away, and you can frame the entire house with this. So the first thing that you need to do when you build this is pour your slab. This is a flat 4-inch thick. Now, if I went larger with heavier walls, I would do a monolithic pour and take it down to 8 inches thick around the perimeter so that it can support the weight. It's about $135 a yard right now for concrete. So that's the first step. And if you are going to do any plumbing, that needs to be rough plumbed into the floor to begin with. Once you got that portion, now it is time to build your trusses. Building with an arched A-frame gives you a lot of flexibility. And what is nice about this is the roof and the two walls are all in one. And so when you get done with that, you've got well over half the building done right there. And then you just have the end vertical walls to cap off your build. Now, I built the trusses. You got to build a jig. Typical arched A-frame is to go with the width of your building, and that's your radius for your arch. And so this is 12 foot wide.
So that's one really cool advantage there for building this way, is being able to use the reclaimed or just discarded lumber. That's something I haven't heard this guy talk about before, but from what I've seen, he's just like cutting strips of discarded lumber, and he's like making a composite out of it by like gluing it together, I believe. So, and then he's created a jig so that he can create the arches for this arched shed. So that's a cool plus of doing this kind of method.
Wide, 20 foot deep, and so 12 feet brought it about 11.5 feet high at the peak. Now, so the benefit is, hey, you build those arches over there and you got most of your roof done. And you don't have any overhangs and soffits and eaves to box in, and you avoid all that cost because the water just runs all the way to the ground. The negative is that your walls curve in from the very ground. And so these three shelves, this is about a 30-inch shelf, this one's 24, and this one's about 14 inches as it's curving in. So you're restricted on your use of some of the area inside the building. Now, one option is to go straight walls 4, 5, 6 feet up and then start to curve. And you can do a tighter curve at that point. Of course, you won't be starting from your radius here. You'll start with your radius right in here or just a little lower to bring it up, and you can keep it still within very similar height to this, maybe about a foot higher. And then you've got flat walls all the way up 5 or 6 feet on the side. And that's enough for furniture, chest of drawers, a vanity, kitchen sink, and things like that. Now, it'll still be curved enough where you can't have cabinets overhead very easily. You know, they'll be sticking out a little bit if you do that. But for the most part, you'll be able to use the area, and that'll still keep your roof line reasonable and not very high. So those are some great ways to think about dealing with an arched A-frame and still get some usage out of this. Now, I built the walls 3.5 inches thick, 2x4 thickness. It's a garden shed, so I wasn't trying to super insulate the thing. But if you are wanting to live in the building that you're building, I would definitely go to a 5.5 inch wall thickness minimum. So stick with your lumber sizes. So 2x4, 2x6, 2x8, 10, 12. And certainly if you're way up north and need a lot of insulation, go with a 2x12 thickness, 11.5 inch thick wall. The styrofoam is very cheap, and you're not adding a whole lot of cost by going with a depth. Now, in my backyard R value testing and comparing it with straight styrofoam, this is coming in at about an R3.5 per inch, which is very good. Is how much I ground the styrofoam down using my electric lawnmower, converted into a giant blender, and watch the videos on how to build that thing, but it works wonderful. And then I'm using these giant 75 cubic foot bags that they typically use for insulation removal when they're sucking out insulation out of the attic. And you can connect that onto the lawnmower and it'll just fill the whole bag up. It's got enough of a fan volume that it'll push it right in there and get it full. Then I made a little stand that hangs this large bag, and I've got a brake that opens and closes gate that makes it very easy to fill a big garbage can for me to measure it out each time and dump that into the mixer. Now I've got a nice 9 cubic foot mixer, electric mixer. You don't have to have a masonry mixer. You can do it with a regular barrel mixer, but you'll need to give it a little bit of help with a shovel in there because it likes to stick to the sides and won't get just really good mix as you do with the paddles. But those mixers are way cheaper. The other option is to do a 55-gallon drum mixer, and you can put pins on the sides of it, about a third up from the bottom, and then 2 pins to hold it here, and then you have 2x6s with a little groove that the pins will fit in, so it'll pivot, and then extend the 2x up here so that the pins will hold it steady while you're mixing. And then if you get it up high enough, you can actually get a wheelbarrow under this thing and dump it into the wheelbarrow to wheel it wherever you want to go. But I'm using these plastic mason troughs. This stuff is so light, you just dump it into that and just carry it. And then I bucketed it and poured it into the walls. So once you've made your trusses, and I ripped 2x into 1/2 inch strips, especially for a 12-foot radius, you need it down to a 1/2 inch. I tried larger and I snapped the wood. And so you bend 2 pieces of 1/2 inch and you glue and nail that together. And then you put spacer blocks every 24 inches. And then you put another 2 strips in there, clamp it all together with glue and nails, and then you pop it out of the jig. Now, when you pop it out of the jig, it'll pop out a little bit. It'll move about 1.5 to 2 inches. And as long as all of them are moving about to the same amount, it works fine. As you're putting it up, you'll put 2x strips over here that you're screwing onto to hold it into position, but it also pulls them flat all the way across. And you want to do it on both sides and one at the top so that all of the trusses will be consistent in size when you put them up. I put them on 2-foot centers, and then I use hardboard, a little 1/8 inch hardboard with the white surface, and that's to the inside. You oil it with a vegetable oil, and you can spray it on or roll it, whatever you want. And then I screwed it onto the inside and outside, and that made my form. And then you're ready to pour. Now the hardboard gave a little bit because when you're packing this in, it's really pushing hard against the hardboard. So a slightly thicker thickness would work better. The other option is just take 2x2s and strip it this direction, screwing it in. That'll give you good bracing. and keep it more in size. But you move your hardboard all the way up and pour it in different pieces. So I didn't do the whole thing, so I didn't want to buy that much hardboard. But I did enough to do one column at a time, 4x8 section, and actually 4x20 is what I was pouring on either side, and then moved up in multiple pours and then did the ends. Now, I did it out of order. What I found is you want to do these end walls first while it is still open on the top, because this arch makes it very difficult once you've poured the top over here to be able to pour this wall. So frame and pour the end walls first, and then do the roof, and it'll be a whole lot easier for you to deal with that. Once you have it all poured and overnight it's dry enough that you can move the boards, you scrape them and oil them again and screw them up into the next area. And once you're done with that, now you're ready for the fiber mesh. This is a 2.5-inch fiber mesh made for masonry, because Portland cement is so alkali, you can't use just any fiberglass matting. It needs to be alkali resistant. This I'm buying at Home Depot, and if you buy the 6 rolls together, it's a 36-inch by 150-foot roll. That is way cheaper than buying single rolls. They work out to about $42 a roll, and that is real cost effective to wrap it, the whole building inside and out, and use a staple gun and staple it as you go, overlapping 2 inches. You can either wrap it vertically or horizontally. I did it horizontally all the way around. And once you've got all that up, you're ready to start stuccoing. The first coat of stucco, I did 1 part Portland, a 1/2 part lime, 3 parts sand. This is a fairly strong mix that I did. And now, the next time I do this, I'm going to go back to my scoop sprayer. It takes a lot of air. You need a high-powered compressor to push enough air through that thing. My scoop sprayer did really good the first time I used it, and then it didn't work good after that. And it kind of got clogged up, and so I need to keep it clean next time, but I'm going to buy me another one. I really want to get the 3 sprayer nozzles so it doesn't take quite as much air, but they're a little more expensive. But you can scoop that and get that on the mud on the wall quickly. And then you still have to work it and spread it out, but it will save you time. And the stucco work on the building is the most labor-intensive part of working with this. And then you float it, and use a wet float. And after you've troweled it with a metal trowel, then you will float it with a wet float. And that'll give you a nice sandy finish. It's rough enough for the final coat. Then the final coat was a similar mix, but with a little more sand. I went up to a 5 sand in that mix. And you're putting on a little over 1/8 of an inch for each layer, so it's not a really heavy-duty coat like typically for stucco. You don't need that. But it's amazing how strong this makes it once that hardens with that fiber mesh in the walls. But once you have the 2 coats in there and smoothed out, you've got the surfaces all done. Now, I made trim out of styrofoam. And so when you're going around to the furniture stores and other places that have tons of styrofoam, they're glad to get rid of it. Some of it will be 3/4 inch thick in sheets, and you can run it through your table saw and rip it into 4-inch, 6-inch pieces, whatever you want to. That's what I did here, 4-inch and 6-inch piece there. And you can glue it and nail it gently onto here, and then you get fiber mesh that is sticky. So I have a separate roll that I bought from Home Depot, and it's sticky back. And so you cut the thickness just enough to wrap around it, and it just sticks to it beautifully. And then you stucco over it. Now, when I was trying to stucco weird shapes like this, it was really hard with the trowel. And what I found with my rubber gloves, that I just smear it on with my rubber gloves and around the ends and these ridges that I cut out on I used a hot wire cutter on that I made, and I'll make a video to show how I did that. But you just run that through the hot wire and it cuts any shape that you like for your own trim. But it was really hard to do this with trowels. But working with your hands, you could just smear it up into the grooves, and that was quick and did the job. So I was excited to find that. So that worked out wonderful. So that's the trim. So you're not even having to buy trim. It's all recycled material that you're using here. Now I had some cedar left over from building the house, and so I was able to make these doors. So that didn't cost me anything except for the hardware that I put in here. So, you know, got the piece here that fit. I drilled a hole here that it drops in, and then there's a locking mechanism on the other side here for the door. I didn't do a video on how to make these doors. There's several good YouTube videos on making barn doors. So I didn't figure, hey, there doesn't need to be another one. But I was real happy with how that turned out. Cedar is just really pretty when you get it stained like that, natural cedar. Now, the paint finish that I used over here, and stucco roofs are not typical, but there's plenty of dome houses and things like that that are stucco, but you need a good water-resistant paint finish on the roof. I chose to go with elastomeric roofing paint, but there's all kinds of finishes that you can use. This is a Behr brand, B-E-H-R, Home Depot carries this, and they make an elastomeric paint, exterior roofing and wall paint, and it is permeable. In other words, it's letting water vapor permeate through the material, which is important because you don't want to totally seal this out. If you get moisture in the wall, it needs to be able to dry out. And also you could get it in colors. Most elastomeric paints is white, and you can't get it any other color. Now it's about $150 for a 5-gallon bucket, but I found another place online, I'll put a link to it here, that had this for like $58 for the 5 gallons, and then with shipping was about $45. It was about $105 to get it to me. Now they didn't have all of the colors, but they had enough colors that I found this one over here that I like to go with it. And so that's what I did. Now I bought an Avanti Harbor Freight sprayer. I've never used one of these airless sprayers before, but this was a large enough project that I wanted to try one. I had a little bottle sprayer that I did the primer coat, which was Kilts 2 is what I used, and primed the whole thing first before I put this Behr on. And but it's slow, you know. With that, I have to water it down on that sprayer. But you use this Avanti sprayer, man, it puts the paint on there fast. Now, the elastomeric, though, is so thick. And I got a 15.015 nozzle that came with the sprayer. That's about middle of the line. And it was battling to get the paint through that little nozzle. So I looked it up, and they said you need to go clear up to a 21 to 25 size. Well, Home Depot had a 21, and I put that in there. And wow, that puts the paint out. In fact, the sprayer couldn't even keep up with it. And so it's trying to get you up to 3,000 PSI on there. And so every time I would hit it and I would spray it, and then boom, I was out of spray. And so it's constantly having to release just a little bit to give it enough time to catch up. But you know, once you learn how to use your sprayer, it works. And man, it put the paint on. So my first day spraying, you know, did the entire roof in one evening. Just amazing. And the walls, the whole exterior. I mean, it doesn't take long at all. And then I wake up in the middle of the night and it's storming outside. I think, whoa, I sure hope it dried enough before it started raining. Well, I tucked my head out in the morning and it had all washed off. This section was still okay, but everything here had all washed out. About $100 worth of paint. Had to order me some more. and finish it up again to finish the paint. So I was watching my weather forecast a lot harder the next time I painted with this thing. But I used just regular exterior paint for two-tone colors here with the cream and the green. It's hard to get really tight, smooth edges with such a rough surface, but I did the best I can. It looks great. I'm happy with it, how it turned out. But it has been a really fun project, and the cost on this thing is really low.
All right. Well, that's kind of a pretty cool little rundown on how he built this whole thing. Looks like that you can use some minimal tools to put it together. Like you don't have to use the big concrete mixer. I guess he gave you another option where you could do it inside of a 55-gallon barrel, and then this is pretty much mostly recycled materials into a build like this, and he had to purchase some things like the paint, and then he had some special tools like the hot wire thing for the styrofoam to make his custom trim. But I don't think you would really need to use or have to purchase anything like that, and you could leave the trim off of there, I would assume, and just make a simple arch like he made, cutting some 2x4s into the strips, and then I guess into those half-inch strips, and then gluing them together. I guess you would definitely need a lot of clamps because you need a way to clamp all that together. But before we end the cast on YouTube, I wanted to make sure everybody got to hear about the Exit and Build Land Summit that's going on, that John Bush is putting on. You can go check that out at livefree.academy, and or just by searching Exit and Build Land Summit. And then like I said, this event is going to be happening May 13th through the 15th. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just transitioned over from the video to just shooting the shit. So hopefully that went okay. But yeah, go check out the Exit and Build Land Summit. There is a way that you can, if you put in your information to register, that you will get access to some of the replays of the conference. So I just heard about that the other day. So if you guys want to go check that out, I think that there are going to be some really great speakers at this event. And so let me tell you about some of the speakers here. We got Joel Salatin. He's kind of like he's been around the farming community for a long time. He runs Polyface Farms over there in Virginia. He's written several books. He's very prolific author and promoter of self-reliance in liberty. We got Paul Wheaton. He runs a website. He's got Permies.com, and he's also a big guy in permaculture. He does a lot of work with creating these rocket stove heater system kind of things for different buildings, and just using different methods to live comfortably and live off the land, and figure out how to help other people learn that stuff as well. Looks like they're going to have Jack Spirko there. He runs the Survival Podcast, and he's a big guy on telling everybody, how you can live more self-reliantly. I'm not sure who this person is. Diana Leaf Christian says she's the author of Creating a Life Together. Oh yeah, practical tools to grow eco-villages and intentional communities. I've heard I've heard about that, and people have suggested me that book on how to create a community. That she wrote this really good book, Creating a Life Together, Practical Tools to Grow Eco-Villages and Intentional Communities. So So she would be a great resource. Majorie Wildcraft, she does really great videos on some practical things you can do to have enough food for you and your family. Joel Skousen, I know he wrote a book on strategic relocation. So, kind of giving you some tips on, where would be some good places to go live and maximize your freedom. They got Derek Bros, one of the guys that created Freedom Cells. And it looks like they got Jim Gale talking there. He created the Food Forest Abundance. They go like design people's yards to be like permaculture food forests and stuff like that. So really looks like they got a really great lineup of speakers going on here. And this is the whole thing is to stop looking for a savior and be your own savior, so that we can build a better future. And it starts with you. Like things all the bad stuff's going on, but you can't you can decide to focus your efforts elsewhere by exiting the system as much as you can and becoming a self-reliant and uh, accepting more personal responsibility and increasing your ability to create abundance in your life and freedom for yourself and those around you, because it's the people that are the most dependent on the system that will have to go along with whatever the new thing is to get you to comply. So yeah, go check out the Exit and Build Land Summit, and I hope that I posted that there in the chat room. Let me post it elsewhere in the other chat rooms I got going on the streams as well. And then I think I actually have that in the description of the videos as well. So, so I think we're good to go on all that. I think that should be in the video description. So, thank you, YouTube, but goodbye. Hope everybody has a great week. And we will be continuing the stream on my Odysee channel. So if you'd like to continue to watch, you can head over to the Odysee channel, or you can go to mspwaves.com/watch, where we are streaming out to the folks of our Hive community and the MSP Waves audience out there. So go hang out in those locations. But for now, I am going to shut down the YouTube stream. So we'll see y'all later.